Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
And it's a few minutes past 10 o'clock on 94.7 The Pulse. This is the Two Blokes Chatting radio show. My name's Neil Butler. His name is Rob Cameron. That was a song called Love Machine by the Pastoral Symphony. It had a who's who of Australian music in it in the late 60s. And arguably the whoest of all of them was the man we're about to speak to. His name is Glenn Shorrock. Hello, Glenn.
Good morning. How are you, lads?
Good morning, Glenn.
Doing very well indeed. I don't know your memories of that song. It only goes back a lazy 53 years or something, but a song that was something of a supergroup. People from the Twilights, of course, which you were part of, from the Strangers, the group, in fact. It must have been some kind of day out at the studio.
I guess it was, mate. I can't remember it at all.
Well, the disappointing aspect...
I guess it was like, We Are the World kind of thing, was it?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Right.
And the main reason I want to bring that up was Jeffrey Edelston was, in fact, the producer of it, the same Jeffrey Edelston that went on to be a doctor.
Yeah, and other things as well.
Allegedly. Yeah, so let's go back to where it all started then. You are obviously born in the UK, but came out to Australia as a child and went to Adelaide, is that right?
Yeah, I grew up in Adelaide, finally, after 2 attempts at settling in Australia. My mother was not happy with things here, too hot, missed her mum and all that sort of stuff. So we went back to England for about 9 months, 10 months, and I completed my primary education there. And then we trooped back out again and settled in Elizabeth, finally, which is north of Adelaide. So it was known as a migrant town. That's where they shoved the migrants at that time. But it was an interesting teenage years. I got here at age of 10 and I left Adelaide at the age of 21. So all my teenage years were spent north of Adelaide and also in South Australia, other parts of. And that's where I began hearing that American culture called rock and roll and American television and I just became a disciple. And Elvis Presley went up on my wall and I haven't looked back since.
A lot of people say nasty things about Adelaide's water, but there must have been something in the Adelaide water. There's been a lot of people who have been very, very successful musical artists coming out of that town.
Yeah, it was once termed as the Liverpool of Australia. Once the 60s got rolling. People like Doug Ashdown going way back, Bobby Bright going even further back, and I was briefly in a vocal group called the Four Tones. When I say briefly, very briefly, a week, and then the guy that left that vocal group returned, and I was all pumped up, ready to be a pop star, and so I said to my mates, Paddy McCartney and Mike Sykes, why don't we do it? And so we started singing a cappella all around Elizabeth and then wider. And we began a career.
Glenn, just on that, in Elizabeth-like area, the western suburbs of Melbourne, where, as you said, they put all the migrants, pretty tough environment, I would imagine, going up through those school years where there was a lot of requirement to look after yourself in tough environments, and sport was something that drew people together, but the arts probably not so. But going into rock and roll at that time, was that something that was a bit trendy and therefore gave you a bit of a better image than, say, going to do ballet or dance or theatre?
Yeah, it gave us an identity. We were known as teenagers. That was a brand new slice of culture, as it were. But you had to have your wits about you. We were only young, remember? I was only 14, 15 years of age. So I probably thought I was a bit tougher than I really was. I only got punched once, and then I started crying.
Rob's very much the same in the studio if he doesn't behave.
Yeah. But
yeah, well, teenagers used to get a bad name in those days because we didn't have much to do. And it was only because of the music and the culture that gave us a sense of belonging. And the attitude was indicative of that time. The Rebel Without a Cause, Blackboard Jungle, films like that, we could see the way American teenagers behaved, or the way Hollywood sort of behaving.
Yeah.
And we tried to be like them. And of course the music was much more important to me than going out and vandalizing and getting into trouble. I'm too much of a coward for that sort of stuff. I could dance pretty well, so I concentrated on my dancing. When I say dancing, just basically jiving. The old
Elvis Presley type
jive.
dancing.
Oh yeah, I could do that pretty well.
Yeah, but of course, being trendy in the music, and which captured the imagination of teenagers of that time, it probably put you at a level where people didn't want to punch you because you're a bit above that, which probably gave you some space in in that tough environment.
Yeah, I guess it did. It gave us well, it certainly gave me a goal. I wanted to be in show business. I wanted to emulate my heroes, and they were all musical heroes from America. But as a boy growing up in England, I liked test pilots and racing drivers and people like that, and that's what I aspired to be. And while I was at school here, in South Australia, I joined the RAF cadets, the ATC, Air Training Corps, and I thought seriously about following it into the service. So I had an aptitude to see how I could take control of a plane. And I didn't take control of the plane.
Glenn,
very well.
Just on that, you obviously dabbled in music because you like it, but what age were you when you realised that you were actually very good at it?
Oh, gosh, very good at it. I don't know. I just felt that I could do it without too much trouble. I didn't have to learn much. I had to learn stagecraft and those sort of things, and a bit about the business of being in the music game. But basically, I found that I could sing, and I found out that I could harmonize and understood harmony, and that became the most important thing. The Everly Brothers taught me all that. So yeah, that's why we became a vocal group, because we like to sing harmony.
So in 1964 or thereabouts, you got together with a couple of your mates and created the Twilights, which is, I guess, the first time the world found out about your prowess as a musician. And then in sort of 1966 or thereabouts, I think Hoadley's Battle of the Bands or Battle of the Sound or whatever that competition was worth, that has to have been a major turning point. Yeah,
well, prior to that, I'm still in Adelaide, right? And the Beatles are all over the place. That's what everybody listened to, and no one else really.
Yeah.
And they had a Beatles sound-alike competition. The Twilights won that in Adelaide, and then maybe a few months later, excuse me, a managing type person came over from Melbourne and saw the Twilights perform. We are now a fully fledged beat group, a 6-piece beat group, a la the Beatles, Kinks, Stones, and all that. We're no longer just a vocal group. And yeah, he invited us to come to his club in Melbourne, and we did so, and we just clicked. People liked us, and so we decided to go professional. We all gave up our day jobs and moved to Melbourne. And yes, you're right. Soon after that, we entered the Hoadley's National Battle of the Soul, and we won it. You know, it was fantastic, and that gave us a real boost in our confidence, and also took us to England, which was another boost to our confidence, albeit our confidence to stick it out in the cold weather. Yeah.
So I guess that means that you had the twilights of your career very early in the piece.
I have. Say that again?
The twilights of your career were actually very early in the piece.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. So very good, very good.
There you go. I write my own material, as you've probably already worked out. So then the band Axiom was formed, and I guess back then in the late 60s, who would have known that all these years later you'd still be travelling the countryside with one member of that band? But Axiom was described as a supergroup. What does that mean? Just the fact that there were people coming from lots of different bands?
Yeah, it was very embarrassing that we were termed a supergroup. That was termed because those English bands and a few others formed themselves into Traffic, Blind Faith, Cream, all that stuff. People were cross-pollinating, and after 6 years with the Twilights, I was a bit of a loss as to what to do with myself once the Twilights fell apart, and I was at Ian Meldrum's place one Saturday night. A party was going on, and Cad was there. Brian, I knew Brian. I knew the band, the group. I was really impressed by their writing. Woman, You Are a Break of Me, and Such a Lovely Way. So, yeah, he and I just got talking, and we had a meeting in the back seat of his Simca, and we ran out of papers. We went back into the party and started looking around the room, and ended up with Chris Stockley from the Camp Act, and Doug Lavery from the Valentines, Don Moody, of course, from the group, and Brian and myself.
Glenn, two-part question. A Little Ray of Sunshine, when that was put together and then released to the general public, was your feeling on that song, this is going to be really good, or geez, I hope this goes all right? And did you have any idea that in 2022 that song is still played at christenings and birthings all around the country?
Yes, indeed. No, I thought it was a bit soppy to begin with, bit of a soppy song. I was still into being a rock and roller. I like more energetic music. But, as that song wove its magic around the country, I realised that it was going to be a classic, had all the right ingredients. I sing a bit flat in a couple of places on that recording, and that's always bugged me all my life because I pride myself on my pitch. Yeah, I'm able to throw a banjo down the toilet without hitting the sides. That's the
What a quaint expression. The only thing I would suggest you go back and do a version that is a boy version, because when my grandson was born mid last year, Little Ray of Sunshine wasn't quite going to cut the mustard, unfortunately. So there's an opportunity there.
No, he probably wouldn't like that.
No, not my boy Maverick.
We have, Brian and I did record another version of it when we did an album under the name of Blazing Salads, but that's another story.
I actually saw you and Brian live as Blazing Salads on the Gold Coast in 1993 at a corporate event, and it was absolutely brilliant.
Was it? Was it good?
It was brilliant, and nobody knew who. You know, oh, I got this mob blazing salads coming on, and I was going, great. And you two blokes walked out and just blew us away for the next hour and a half. It was extraordinary.
Yeah, I don't remember the actual gig, but yeah, Blazing Salads was an enjoyable project. Really, Brian and I wrote that album in Fiji. By now, I'd done well with LRB, and I had a bit of time, and I just thought I always wanted to write something that was inspired by my love of the tropics, and it was good. Of course, Brian says, it's my fault that we'd had a couple of bottles of red. Come on, so and we talked about Mel Brooks and that great film called Blazing Salads.
Yep,
every bit as much as a classic as Little Ray of Sunshine is.
Just about.
Yeah.
So obviously, Glenn, the band that most people would associate you with is Little River Band, obviously, and there's a whole stack of stuff there that we could talk about forever about the current state of the name, but let's not. But when you first met up with the guys, they were Mississippi, and the story goes that it might have been a small town somewhere near Corio Bay where Little River Band was officially launched.
We got together in Melbourne in 1975, early 1975, and had a lineup that was pretty good. And we had a gig in Geelong, and we drove down the Geelong Highway, whatever it's called, and we passed a sign saying, Little River exit 1 mile. And I said to the guys, Little River sounds like a song. It also sounds like a band, Little River Band, and they went. I said, well, really, we don't want to be called Mississippi. We're an Australian band. We should have an egalitarian feel to it. And so, Little River Band stuck, and the rest is history.
So I had the good fortune to speak to your bandmate, Graham Goebel, probably 10 or 15 years ago now, and I asked him the question, was it a deliberate ploy to move from an American river name to an Australian river name, or was it just a fluke that it happened to be a river? And he couldn't answer the question.
No, that was my argument for using the name. There's a little river in every country.
Yep.
And especially in Australia, I've been over little rivers for about 100 times, around the country. No, I carried that flag.
Yep. Now, he did give you the credit for it, I've got to say. No, well, and for those playing along at home, it was the Golf View Hotel in Geelong, now known to all and sundry in this town as the Sphinx.
That's right.
Yeah, where the name was launched.
Yep, and I think we were introduced as Little River Band for the first time. Yeah, I've played that gig subsequently over the years. Yeah, the Sphinx, that's right.
Glenn, the style of music that you have personally been involved in, different platforms to deliver it, but it's been consistently good and got a similar sort of theme. Let's call it soft rock for the sake of an argument. But we talked about the great songs that you created, late 60s and the Little River Band classics. We as listeners love it all, and it's hard to find the best child. But do you believe, as an individual and as the different groups are in, that the longer you did it, the better you got, and therefore the stuff you did in the latter 70s was better than the late 60s?
You mean over the...
Yeah, over the journey. Did you think you just got better and better at producing that same style of music? Because look, Little River Band, there's so many classics, but I look back at the Axiom days and I think, geez, how good was that stuff then? But was it any better or worse than what Little River Band was?
No, I think Little River Band was certainly a continuation of my tastes and the tastes of my fellow band members. And I was lucky enough to be, a seminal part of the Twilights alongside Terry Britton, who's been a wonderful writer and producer. and then meeting up with Brian, who's a great songwriter, and they encouraged me to be a writer as well, and that's what I did, and that's what I brought to the table with LRB alongside B. Birtles and Graham Goble. We had about 80 songs, 60 to 80 songs that were reasonable, and some of them were bloody great. I mean, Long Way There was the first thing that we recorded, and I knew immediately that we were onto something. The harmonies, the blend, the style of music, we encompassed a lot of different styles, which I always like. I don't like to stay in one bag.
Yeah. Cool Change, my personal favourite. Where did you rate it amongst your better works?
Oh, yeah, that's up in the top three, that one. That's the most successful song I've ever written, financially and artistically, I think. And also, it's an honest song. I wrote it within about half an hour, I reckon.
Because it was coming from the heart.
Yeah, it just came out of me. Yeah, I polished it up as when we went into the studio and whatever, but basically it was from the heart. And I was having a few issues with the band, as you do in bands, and I just felt, if there's one thing in my life that's missing, it's the time that I spend alone. And that was the opening line of the song, and off I went.
Well, we might we were going to do something different, but we might use that as the exit song from the interview, because clearly it's a favourite of yours and clearly a favourite of Rob's, clearly a favourite of mine as well. I think one of the great things about that, and we will wind it up very short because we've taken up a lot of your time, but the great bands seem to have multiple songwriters. You look, the Beatles and all these other great bands.
Yeah,
Little River Band was blessed by the fact that they had at least three very talented songwriters amongst them.
Yes, indeed. And also David Briggs wrote a couple of songs. We can't forget Lonesome Loser. That's a great song. Yeah, I think we had a plethora and a luxurious richness of good material until we sort of ran out of puff, shall we say. And then the cracks began to show. I wrote a subsequent song called Will You Stand With Me, and that line comes from that song. So, yeah, the cracks were beginning to show. I felt that I had more to offer and more to display of my talents, shall we say. And I was thinking of doing solo projects and things like that. And that was it. Interpreted by Goble and Birtle as being a non-committal and not devoting enough time to the band. But I felt that we should have taken a year off and smelt the roses and spent the money. We'd had 8 top 10s in America. What more do you need? You should take some time off and regenerate and recharge the batteries.
Glenn, just on that theme, through Neil's connections, we have interviewed some absolute legends of Australian rock in recent times. You joined Russell Morris, Ross Wilson, Joe Camilleri and others. And the thing I've noted about you all is how genuine, down-to-earth, humble, relaxed, easy to chat to for someone like us who's just adored your work. Have you... Because of your upbringing, have you always been like that, or did you go through a stage where you got a bit self-indulgent at the height of your powers and then readjusted and went back to who you originally were, or you've always maintained the ability to never forget where you come from?
Oh, yeah. No, I've always been embarrassed by celebrity. I've never courted celebrity, but it's nice. You get good tables at restaurants and stuff.
Yeah.
But no, I'm from a working class family, and that's where I grew up. And I'm a modest man, but I'm not an idiot. I'm no fool. So, I can deal with things. I can deal with the best and the worst.
Well, Glenn, we promised you a relatively short conversation. We have loved this conversation and could comfortably sit here for the rest of the day chatting to you well after lunchtime, but we better not. What we should be doing, though, is tell people that you are currently touring as Rock the House 2022. February the 12th is the closest you're coming to Geelong. You'll be in Melbourne at Hamer Hall. And as I look at the other gigs that you've got going, there's a run of gigs coming up with an outfit called Two Amigos, who apparently in the previous life have been known as Blazing Salads. They're playing Frankston and Bendigo in April and Southbank in April.
Yeah, that's Pancho and Cisco. I'm Cisco, he's Pancho. And we have a lot of fun. You know, Brian and I are close friends and we think at the same speed. And we bounce off each other very well because we've got big bellies now.
We're hoping to have Brian on board in a few weeks as well to have a chat to us as well. His people are talking to our people as we speak. So we're looking forward to having a chat to Caddy as well. And we'll be able to check out the veracity of your stories.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Give him my regards. I just had a conversation with him just now, actually. He's in the Gold Coast at the moment, drowning. It's pissing down. There.
Excellent.
And I'm in where am I? Mission Beach,
nice.
North Queensland. Yes, lovely.
Very, very pleasant indeed. Well, Glenn, thank you so much for putting aside some time. We can probably tell people now that wink, wink, nudge, nudge. This was actually pre-recorded on Thursday, but it's just absolutely, just in case it's not raining on the Gold Coast when this goes to air. Thank you so much for being part of the Two Blokes Chatting radio show. We have absolutely loved having a chat.
Yeah, thank you, mate.
Good on you, Glenn. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Cameron, right?
Rob Cameron. Yep, Rob and Neil. Yep.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
See, that's another pitfall of getting old.
Just as long as you don't forget the lyrics, Glenn, nothing else matters.
Yeah,
and Rob,
I've done that recently. You know, I got to the part of the song, and I've gone, what's next?
And this is where your stagecraft comes to and you indicate to the audience you want them to sing along.
Yes, you can do that. That's a good trick.
Yeah.
But basically, I just say, I forgot the lyrics.
Well, wasn't Elvis, I think, towards the end was basically reading the whole show, wasn't he?
Yeah. Who was?
Elvis Presley.
Yeah. I think Farnham does the same, I think.
Okay.
He has his short-term memory's not very good, and mine's shit.
All right. Well, Glenn, do you want to introduce your own song? It's called Cool Change. If you want to have a crack at it, here's your chance on the Two Blokes Chatting radio show.
No. Yeah, you do it.
All right. It's Little River Band and, of course, the great Glenn Shorrock on vocals and behind the songwriting credits as well. It's Cool Change. Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you, boys. All the best.